Okay, thank you for the warm introduction. Before I go into it, so I won't take too much time because I see we're already overdue in terms of time. I just want to address, like, in terms of what the other speakers said, like, I'm very honored to be part of the panel of young great leaders at such a very young age. So thank you for the opportunity. The problem that we have in terms of data science specifically, it's we as the technical guys, the data scientists, we might develop a solution that is very good and that will make change within the workplace or business case as defined. But when you present it to a person who's supposed to take it further or get funding for it, it does not get through because most people have this do not have the skill to present their solutions to the people who are supposed to take it through. So that's the most common problem we have. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna present ESG and I'm gonna make it as simple as I can to people who are also non-technical in terms of risk. So here's ESG, guys. Before I begin, I just wanna introduce you to the Sustainable Development Goals, which were set by the UN in 2015. And these goals, among them, you can see, which is quality education, which is for reduced inequalities. And the goal here is to achieve this goal by 2030 globally, not just within a specific country or a specific location. Okay, so what is ESG? ESG in an investment term is referred to as social responsible investing, sustainable investing, green investing, ethical investing, or social conscious investing. And how can we apply ESG in our companies or institution? Well, most people think it is difficult to apply environmental, social, and governance because there are so many factors within ESG that can be applied. So they don't know where to start or how to approach it. But let me tell you that ESG is less complicated than you think, better performing than you thought, and very critical in terms of preparing the survival of your institution in the near future. I'm gonna start with addressing how you can approach ESG in terms of the environmental issues that we have in terms of the E and the S and the G. Now focusing on the environmental. So this refers to how you will manage resources and prevent pollution by reducing waste, emissions that have negative impact on climate change, executing environmental reporting. And this is very critical at a time where we are consuming natural resources more than we can replace them. And moving on to social issues and governance issues. Social issues, we consider this as the impact the company have on society and can be addressed by the company's social activities such as promoting health and safety, protecting human rights, and product integrity. As for governance, we know that it's a real issue in South Africa in terms of governance. These are the risks that a company faces as a result of its management. This includes diversity within the leadership of a company, corporate brand or corporate risk, compensation of executives, and protecting shareholder rights. Okay, I've defined ESG and what it is and how you can try and approach it within your institution. But usually when we talk about ESG or when we go to present to external clients about ESG on how they can implement it and why it's necessary, we usually get the question like, okay, ESG, does it really matter? Is it necessary for my business? Do I need this to make money or will it just waste my money? Which is a fair question to be honest. So today, since we're in an AI conference and tech, I'm gonna use examples of tech leaders that are benefiting from ESG. And as for, I noticed everyone was including Amazon in terms of how they operate. So I thought I should just went ahead and use the same case too. But I'm gonna try and use a specific case here, which is the applications of ESG or the benefits of ESG in the tech space, specifically the cloud computing space. As you know that Amazon has Amazon Web Service, which they rent computing space, and Microsoft, which is Microsoft Azure or Azure, however you want to pronounce it. This like plays a major role in terms of the environment, social, and governance of a company. And there's no doubt why these companies are performing the way they are currently, even though we are in the middle of a pandemic or a crisis. Because what cloud does, it's you rent computational power to companies or institutions instead of them having an in-house database or servers which they need to maintain. And that infrastructure cost is huge because you have to have cooling system for it, or some case it runs down, then you have to have people to repair it. So the costs are very expensive in compared to renting, as in like when they rent, you pay as you use, as in it's more accessible to small businesses also to use those cases. And that includes inclusivity within the business industry and the tech industry, and small businesses can participate in the economy, which has a high impact of social issues. And in terms of environmental wise, those equipments that you use, like in-house databases, they have to be transported from one place to another, or they have to be built within your offices or wherever you want to store your data, or whichever infrastructure you use. So those come up with like emissions that they come with their cooling system or transportation, the cars that transport those things to your office. And without those, we reduce carbon emissions within the environment and other factors. Like, for example, I'm gonna try and use my phone here. You can throw at every like tech equipment. I don't know if you can take an equipment that you have in your table or whatever. There's something that's written on it saying like you can't throw it in a dust bin or something. That is a logo of a bin, and then it says wrong. That means you can't dispose it. So you don't really know where to dispose those things. And even though when they dispose them, do we know where are they disposing those things, or do they end up somewhere in a dumpster where they're causing harm to the environmental effect? So having cloud storages and everything, it reduces this type of things in terms of the environment and social inclusivity. And to answer your question in terms of high earning and ESG, ESG does not necessarily mean you're sacrificing financial gain in terms of following green investing or investing in such a way that it will solve social issues, environmental issues, or governance issues. Because research that was done by the Harvard Law School, it shows that companies with high ESG performance tend to have high profitability compared to those companies who have low ESG performance. And this is very evident currently. As I said, we're going through a pandemic and most companies are suffering based on, it's either they are behind digitally, or the stuff that they were doing or the way they are running their business model, it's no longer relevant to the times of today. But still, we see Microsoft and Amazon reaching their own all-time highs in terms of revenue. Like Amazon and Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Service and Microsoft Azure had like a 30% revenue increase in the second quarter this year alone. And we are in the middle of the pandemic. So that shows you that providing sustainable solutions to the world, which are inclusive, because it's easy to access globally, and it solves a problem while eliminating future problems. So this is sustainable. That's why they are doing this much better. Moving on in terms of another risk that you face in terms of ESG. In 2016, Bill Gates and other investors who are worth $170 billion formed the BEV Fund, which the fund has a 20-year duration to aim to invest at commercialization of new technologies that reduces greenhouse gases emissions in areas including electricity generation and storage, transportation, industrial processes, agriculture, and energy efficiencies. When asked what this fund or the purpose of it was for, it was open to businesses like, and I quote, anything that leads to cheap, clean, reliable energy, they are open-minded to. So if your institution is diving through ESG or operating in a way towards it and applying those principles, you are most likely to end up with new funding or for expansion. But if you're not participating in this type of risk or investing or activities with a social inclusivity, that includes diversity within your company. It either can be gender, which can be women in leadership or color, as long as there's diversity within. So it has to be part of the ESG factor. So if you're not doing that, you bear the risk of exclusion in terms of this type of funding. And we're not only talking about this type of benefit that they form. There are other funds that are allocating only maybe to businesses that are fighting climate change or that are solving problems while reducing climate change. So everything is moving there in terms of the funding for this kind of businesses or for any business in particular. It doesn't have to be like a specific industry for you to participate, but I'm just making a use case with the tech industry. Okay, so I'm just gonna leave you to have a read at this cartoon, which I found interesting. Just gonna give you a few seconds. But just to conclude now, remember how you thought you had everything under control, like before COVID happened? We thought like, okay, everything is going great. Our businesses are going great. And then boom, COVID happened. And suddenly we had to readjust or change our structure or our model in order to fit the purpose of us to continue to operate. Like for example, in my opinion, I don't think credit scores in terms of banks would be the same after COVID-19, because if they are the same, everyone is going to default in terms of credit, especially those that lost jobs and everything with regards to this pandemic. So we had to relook at everything, and we didn't plan on that before. Well, and I fear that companies will face a similar situation if we don't take ESG seriously in the future. And looking at financial data is no longer enough no more. We need to look at past financial data before we look at an investment and where those funds are being allocated. The funds that we invest in, where are they being allocated? Is that thing that they're allocating the funds to gonna cost an harm to environment or social exclusivity or bad governance or unethical governance? We need to take those things into consideration because it prevents us from the future risk that we faced or might face in the future. Okay, with that said, I'm just gonna ask a quick question, not a question, but we all have insurance, right? Some sort of insurance. If not all of us in this video call, we have some sort of insurance because we want security in terms of whatever we owe, whatever we're insuring. It can either be medical or on your car or on your home, but you know something can happen to that thing, can happen to whatever you're insuring. So you need security in terms of protecting it for the near future. Well, it is the same with ESG. By investing sustainably, we are doing two things. We are creating insurance and reducing the risk of our planet and economy without sacrificing financial gain and performance. And with that said, there's this quote on the screen, as you can see, that hit me. It's like, there are costs and risks to a program of inaction, but they are far less than the long-range risk and cost of comfortable inaction. That means if we're not prepared, it's gonna be worse than we thought. And my last one is plan for the future, because it is where you're going to spend the rest of your life with. And thank you. Any questions? And you can also ask any questions and then I'll be able to answer in terms of ESG investing. Thank you.